All right, I believe that is my cue. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join us tonight via Zoom. My name is Jason Moore. I'm with the Corporate Communications Department for the city. Tonight, happy to be helping facilitate this Ward 10 meeting. For those of you who are new to Zoom, welcome. I hope you like it, and I hope we can get back to in-person meetings again very soon. This Zoom platform gives us a couple of ways to interact. You can ask questions of Councillor Morrison and others through the Q&A feature. You should see that along the bottom of your screen. You can simply type your question in there whenever you want. There's no need to wait, and we'll read it aloud and get it answered by the appropriate people. The other option is to click the raise hand icon, and you can ask the question yourself that way. Again, no need to wait. Click the raise hand option whenever you're ready, and we'll get to you as soon as possible. I only ask that you keep your questions as concise as possible, and we'll do our best to have them answered. That's the basics of Zoom. Now to the meeting. We're here to specifically discuss Ward 10 and the issues and opportunities for Ward 10. And this is the fourth of 10 ward-specific Zoom meetings that we're hosting over the course of this month and next. And as always, we encourage those with issues or opportunities specific to their ward to bring them up during their meeting. This way we can stay focused as much as possible on the ward at hand. Joining us tonight is, of course, Ward 10 Councillor Jim Morrison, but also Windsor Mayor Drew Dilkins, and a number of administrative staff are here to help answer any questions the councillor or mayor might wish to defer. There is an hour slated for this meeting, and if we need it all, we'll use it. But for anyone who may only have a short time to give us, we'll be trying to get the full meeting up on our YouTube channel tomorrow. Lastly, if you should have a question that we don't get to this evening or that comes to mind later, you can always email your ward councillor, the mayor's office, or 311 afterwards. Now that we know what we're here for, I'd like to ask Councillor Morrison to activate his microphone and share a few words to get the discussion going. Councillor?
Thank you, Jason, and good evening, everyone. I would certainly like to begin by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of First Nations, which includes the Ojibwa, the Odawa, and the Potawatomi. The City of Windsor honors all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples and their valuable past and present contributions to this land. Jason has given us a little bit of the format, so I'm going to make a few opening remarks, touch on a few things that are happening in the ward, and then I'll invite Mayor Drew Dilkins to provide some comments about things that are happening and that are important to our city. And if, as Jason has said, if you have some other questions that come after the meeting, please use by email jmorrison@citywindsor.ca, and I can certainly follow up with more questions. So if you logged on just before we started talking, you may have seen some of a video, and that video is actually it's a drone video, and it's actually hovering and going along the new Langlois Parquet multi-use trail. I'm really proud of this area. This trail is being constructed, well over $1 million being spent in this area on the trails. This will connect Remington Park, which has a trail, and we're going to do some upgrades there as well, through Langlois Parquet and over to Southdale Park, and with a loop there. And it ends up providing 2.4 kilometers of new trails. So it's a beautiful area. With anybody that lives in this area, with connecting these three parks, I'm actually very envious of you, and it's a really great area. And if anybody was asking me where to live in Windsor for a nice quiet street and lots of amenities for kids and seniors, I would certainly steer them in this direction. And I'll be asking James Chaco for a few more details as we go along regarding, because there's several different projects that are connected to that trail. Over on the west side of my ward, the work is either completed or underway on many projects. We've seen the Dougal underpass is now completed, and it's certainly a wonderful addition. Looks beautiful driving down Dougal. And the Northwood Dominion intersection is completed, and there'll be more work going on Dominion, and I'll be asking Chris Nepsey and the engineering team to comment on the future work for Dominion. I also have an announcement to make about the intersection at Northwood and Dominion, and I'm sure you'll be a lot of people will be very excited about that. So there will be changes there. We've certainly improved LaBelle from Dominion to Dougal, and that was long overdue, and it looks great, and it's something that was long overdue. So I'm really thrilled that work got done as well. We also have two what we call local improvement projects happening on the West End. Randolph from Northwood up to Cleary, those folks have been waiting patiently for funding for a road project on their street, and they're going to get rid of the ditches and get curb and gutter, stormwater sewers, water main replacement, street lights, and resurfacing the road surface. And if anybody has any interest in improving their roads, please reach out to me for, I can provide information on how you can get started with a local improvement. Another one that's really important is on Mark Street north of Taunton, and this is a city-initiated local improvement. And the big thing that we're trying to accomplish in this area is removing septic tanks from people and putting people on sanitary sewers. And this has a big environmental impact, and it's so important going forward. So we will have more projects in that area for people that are on septic tanks. And again, certainly reach out to me, or I might mention them later in my talk. But certainly there's a lot of work going on. I've never seen so much construction. This is certainly was the backbone of my platform, was to spend a lot of money on roads and sewers. We spent years with letting things deteriorate, and we have an asset management plan that will stop it from deteriorating. And we're spending records amounts of money on this, and I'm sure the mayor will speak to that as well. So it's really great to see all these projects moving forward. And I'll touch on some of the other ones that you haven't seen yet that are upcoming as we go along through the question and answer period today. So I'll leave it at that for now, just with opening remarks. And I'll introduce Mayor Drew Dilkens. And Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for coming out tonight and attending my ward meeting, and tell us what's going on in the city.
Well, thank you very much, Councillor Morrison, and for the opportunity to speak to those who are here. And you enunciated a lot of the great projects that we've been working on, and Ward 10 is such a great part of the city, and a lot of that work there along Dominion and at the intersection and elsewhere. It's just driving through. There's always construction in Ward 10 recently. So a lot of work going on, and it's been really exciting to see the improvements that have been happening even over just the last 3 years. There's been some real marked improvements, and you can see the progress that is being made. And I just wanted to touch on a few things sort of citywide. And I think many people have heard the news about Stellantis and are a little concerned that our largest employer was having a COVID disruption with the chip shortage, and their second shift has been given notice that in 6 months' time, it will likely, those folks will be on layoff. And there's some disruption that they're looking forward into 2022 that may not resolve itself. And so this is one of those times in the city where we look and we say this is a tough time for 1,800 families who work in the plant, but also the feeder plants that will be impacted by this. And it reinforces the work that we have done, especially this year, a lot of heavy lifting last year and this year with respect to Windsor Works, which is our economic diversification strategy. That strategy was passed unanimously by City Council. City Council has put funding towards that strategy. And in fact, 2 weeks ago, we had already put this report on the agenda to be discussed at our next City Council meeting. We're ready with the implementation plan to start the process of implementing over 40 recommendations that were enunciated through that plan. And that is our guiding document in terms of how we're looking forward at our economic future, and making sure that we're building in the buffers, making sure that we're building in the shock absorbers, that when we get this type of news, that we're not as, we're still concerned, but we're not as concerned because we've got other opportunities that we have created as a community. And if we don't do it, folks, No one is going to. And that is why this becomes so crucial at this particular time. So that's item number one. But good news this week as well. The Premier of the province of Ontario was here, Doug Ford, along with Christine Elliott, his Minister of Health, here to officially give us the nearly $10 million that we needed to move the hospital project forward. And so all of your help with the We Can't Wait campaign and the entire community getting behind and rallying for this money to be sent down here so David Mouche and his team can spend the next 18 to 24 months undertaking all of the work that they need to do to move the hospital project forward in the planning process. Now it can happen. And the good news is this was the critical phase where, up until Monday, the conversation was if we get a new hospital. Now that this money is in hand, we have officially moved to stage 2. Now it's a matter of when we get a new hospital. So that's why this was so crucial. That's why the campaign to activate the entire community was so crucial, to make sure that our voices were heard. And I think we can all agree, if there's nothing else we can agree upon, we can all agree that in the midst of a global pandemic, the importance of healthcare has certainly been highlighted here in good quality facilities and services. And when you look at places like Windsor Regional Hospital, specifically the Olette campus, I think all of us can agree that having a ward room with 5 patients in a ward with a washroom down the hall is probably not ideal. And so the good news with this new hospital, over 80% of the rooms will be private rooms. And when you're talking about a pandemic and the need to isolate, it becomes even more apparent why that is so important. So I'm really delighted that the majority of council said, you know what, we are committed to this. We are going to push for this. The community rallied behind us. And on Monday, we got this project over this hurdle with $10 million that was here. And the Premier came personally deliver the check and see that we're moving forward. So a great week in Windsor with that news. I'd also emphasize that all of the work that we have done when it comes to our financial picture, we have managed through COVID remarkably. And I know our finance team is here. Joe, I don't know if Joe's on the line or someone else from finance, but I'm really proud of the work that they've been doing and all of our staff. On the finance side, we have managed the budget really well. Last year, we were made whole with all of the deficits that we had experienced and every municipality across Canada had experienced. We were made whole with the help of the provincial and federal governments. This year, we have managed so well on the expense side that we are tracking to be in a very good place, with the exception of things that we can control related to the airport and the tunnel operation. And we are seeking support from the federal and provincial governments to make Windsorites whole on that front as well. And we continue to invest record amounts into roads and sewers and our capital projects. In fact, our capital budget, our 10-year plan, is a $1.6 billion plan. This year, we're spending $170 million. We have not canceled one capital project through COVID. We continue to plow through and make sure that we are doing what we can to, and 60% of this, I should say, is also related to roads and sewers. So plowing through to make sure that we're continuing on the commitments that we made on our sewer master plan, which is designed to eliminate basement flooding. It's a $5 billion plan. It's going to take many, many years for us to complete the work, but our foot is on the gas to try and get these projects done because we know how important it is to you. We know what it's like to have basement floods. We see the effects of climate change, and we have a plan. And that's the best part of this, is that as the federal government and the Prime Minister, who's very committed to climate change initiatives, as they open up more opportunities for municipalities like us to apply for funding, we have shovel-ready projects ready to go, part of our plan that we can deliver for people in Windsor. And so I'm just thankful for the entire team and for council for making sure that we can continue to deliver on those capital projects, because at the end of the day, the one thing we can also all appreciate is that they create jobs. And during a pandemic where things are a little uncertain, there's nothing like a good capital project to make sure that people are out working, spending their money in the community, and keeping those important projects going for the city. And finally, Councillor, one last point. I just want to thank everyone who's on the call and recognize the last 20 months has been tough with COVID. We've all had to make choices and decisions. We've had to adjust and adapt and pivot, and it's not been easy for everybody, whether you're a family, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a city councillor, a mayor, an administrator. It doesn't matter who you are or where you work. Every organization has been impacted, and we realize that some of the decisions we've made at the city have caused people to have to pivot and adjust and adapt. And as much as people want to come to community centers and arenas and pools, we know that there was a time when you couldn't, and we were following the restrictions that were in place and doing the best we can to protect our own staff as everyone get vaccinated. And I'm really pleased to see the vaccination rates are moving up dramatically here in the city. Over 87% of our local population who are eligible today have at least a first jab. Almost 85% have a second jab. So those numbers continue to move up. That's a very positive sign. And as the border opens on November 8th and things start going back to normal, I think that's it's going to be great. There's a great spirit in the community about getting back to normal and getting together for Christmas and start finding our new normal and moving forward as a community. So I have great optimism about what I see on the horizon for the city. Lots of great opportunities in the pipeline. Council, including Councillor Morrison, are firmly behind the initiatives that we're working on together. And I'm excited about the opportunities that are in front of us as a city. And I'm excited for the future of the city. And so you should be as well. We've got some great things going on. And when I compare where we're at versus other municipalities of our size, and frankly, some bigger municipalities, we are positioned quite well. And so I feel comforted tonight that we're working really hard for you. And I look forward to any questions or comments that people might have. Councillor Morrison, thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Your Worship. Really appreciate you being here this evening. And maybe before I start with any questions, just to introduce a few of the people on the screen. This is our senior leadership team, and I want to welcome Chris Nepsey, our Commissioner of Infrastructure Services. Hi, Chris. And Chris is brand new to the city. He came to us from Essex, and I believe you've been on the job about 2 months. And so you're still. That's a big area that you cover, and it's been known as the city engineer or the chief engineer. So anything that we're talking about tonight about roads and sewers goes through Chris's desk, and so it's a big area to cover off in a very short time. So welcome, Ray Mansour. I'd like to welcome you as well. You're been with us for some time, but you're now the new Commissioner of Community Services. So congratulations on moving into that spot. Chris is, Ray, I'm sorry, is responsible for parks and facilities, and now includes also our library system. So, and I know I'm missing a lot of other things, but a lot of the facilities that we have, arenas and pools and everything else. So that again is a big area. And Jason, welcome and thanks for coming on. Jason is fairly new too, so he's our CAO, but I'm not going to give him any breaks for being new anymore. Now you can answer the tough questions, Jason. So, but Jason is new this year as well. So we really, I've really been impressed, and I've had Jason come around with me throughout Ward 10, so he's seen it. He knows what I call the good, the bad, and the ugly, and so he took a lot of notes. So and I'll be doing the same with Chris shortly as well. So that the senior team knows what's going on in Ward 10 and has actually gone and seen it. You see a lot of other names possibly on your screen too. These are all people that we might be tapping on to answer some more detailed answers. They represent people that are executive directors, senior managers of various departments, and I really appreciate all these people. We have 10 of these ward meetings, and these people are showing up every night to help us out. They're the people that are the experts, and we as councillors certainly rely on all of you, and thank you very much for coming out again tonight. So Jason, do we have any questions we can respond to?
Yes, sir. And before we get to the first one, I'll just remind everyone there are two ways to do it: the Q&A chat feature, which a lot of people are using already, and then the raise hand feature, where you would be able to ask the question directly. So please make use of both, and we'll get to the question now. The first one coming from Carl: what additional authority and input might cities like Windsor use to further the change to a greener economy? This is kind of a two-part question. So again, what additional authority and input might cities like Windsor use to further the change to a greener economy? And is concern over climate emergency front and center with respect to all policy being developed by the city?
Thank you very much for that question, Carl. Maybe I'll start, and I'm just not sure who might be able to add a little bit to this, but certainly jump in if you can. But certainly the City Council has declared a climate emergency sometime ago, and we have a climate change and adaptation plan in place for anything that we do. So if you look at our council agenda on every item that we look at. We have a section that is all about climate change and the effect of anything that we do that can impact climate. That, you know, so that really helps us make those kind of decisions. So I can assure you, Carl, that we look at climate through every policy that we have as we move people to to a greener economy. I can think back, we instead of going with normal vehicles, we went with hybrid vehicles as an example. And we are doing things such as moving forward with organic waste diversion and collection. That will be coming soon as well. So there are some big things, but I can assure you that everything is going through a climate change lens.
Very good, thank you. The next question is from Randall, and it is, what is the status of the Cabana Road project?
Well, you know, I'm going to ask that one to go to Chris, because that is Ward 1, and I know it affects all of us, but it's a long-term project, and so I'll turn it over to you to Chris on that one.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor. Good evening. Thanks for the question. I know, like you said, it's ending up in Ward 1 anyways. Phase 3 right now is being completed. Anyone that's been down there has seen the construction crew. Actually, this weekend, the Dougal-Cabana intersection is going to be closed except to emergency vehicles. So I'm sure that's going to cause a little bit of short-term pain, but long-term gain. Phase 4, so the continuation to Highway 3 or you're in line that way. In 2022, the utility relocation will happen, and then the construction will take place in 2024. So a little bit this year, a little bit next year, and then hopefully wrapping up in 2024 to the highway.
Very good. Thank you very much, Chris. And as someone who drives through that intersection every day, I appreciate you getting it done. All right, our next question we'll take from the phone lines here, or I guess it's through the Zoom lines. Mark is on the line. If we can bring Mark in to ask his question.
Yes, I actually have two questions. My first question is, there was talk a while ago, and this is pre Jim Morrison time, that the sound barrier that exists between here and Church and the residents of that area of South Windsor have the sound barrier, and that would eventually be extended to include people that are along the EC Row area up to Walker Road. It's been many years since that was ever brought up, and I'm wondering if that's ever going to happen. On a nightly basis, people in the Remington Park area that are along EC Row have to listen to people that are on their motorcycles racing down the expressway, probably well in excess of the speed limit, cars and trucks with loud mufflers, again, being up on EC Row speeding. So that's my first one. My second one is more specifically to the mayor. You know, there's a lot of talk about the diversification of the economy within Windsor specifically. And I have heard from a lot of people online that the diversification only seems to center around further automotive investment in Windsor, and why there isn't a move towards looking for investments that include from the technology sector, because Windsor does have a lot of people that have come out of computer science programs, as well as a lot of the people that are in engineering. I know many engineers that have had to go to the States to work because you just don't find the positions here. So those are my two questions.
Thanks, Mark.
Maybe we can, for the first question, maybe is there somebody that can respond to the question about the sound barrier? I know I've had some questions along when you get to the North Service Road. I think that's the area possibly that Mark is referring to. It's a little ways from the road. It's not uptight like some of the other areas, and I know that the city has planted trees there that may be still on the young side that aren't having a huge impact yet, but might help as we go along. But is there somebody that could respond to that area, or we can get back to Mark regarding the sound barriers?
Yeah, Councillor Morrison, It's new to me, and I appreciate you letting everybody know that it's new, and I don't like not having answers for you. But with respect to the sound barrier, I see there's another question with respect to sound barriers there in the question and answer. So it's something that I'm looking into. I've already reached out to the team. I know when we do rehab on EC Row, they've done some repairs on it, but as far as installation of new barriers or the extension of those barriers and that attenuation for sound, I'll definitely get some answers for you, and then you can respond to your constituents.
Thank you, Chris. I know, in addition to this area, some of the ramps where they tend not to be, they don't have the sound barriers too, and so people are accelerating onto the expressway. So if you could look into that, and Mark, if you could leave contact information, we'll certainly get back to you. Mr. Mayor, there was a question that was sent in your direction.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mark, for the question. And so Windsor Works, being the guiding document, really talks about 4 pillars, and then we call it the LIFT strategy. So it talks about Windsor's location, our infrastructure, our future economy, and our talent. And obviously, you know, we had, I shouldn't say it's obvious, we had lots of conversation about the direction and what we should be doing, and, you know, what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing, where are our strengths, how do we align with college and university to make sure that there are talent pipelines, and what do we do that's authentic to Windsor. And so, you know, it was already clear, but it crystallized through lots of conversation that, you know, the thought of moving into a space that, you know, if Windsor decided to say we're going to make silicon chips, that's probably not super authentic to, you know, what we have going on here today. But we said we still want to be in the space of high tech and make sure that we're moving from being the auto capital of Canada to the automobility capital of Canada. And that shift is actually really, really important. And it's an important distinction, one between the other. And so it's looking at where the auto sector is going and making sure that when it comes to our roots and our bread and butter and what people are good at here, that we still have gainful employment opportunities that allow us to shift with the sector, with our largest employer, and making sure that we are going to be playing in the battery space, the autonomous vehicle space, that we're looking at software and cybersecurity that goes into these vehicles, recognizing that, you know, more and more they're computers on wheels. But also looking at other sectors that make sense. And so healthcare being one, and the collaboration, the synergy between the University of Windsor, between what's going on at St. Clair College, and looking at the new hospital as an area where R&D can happen. Also looking at some of the strengths on the border and trade side that put us on the map as a border innovation zone, recognizing that the Gordie Howe Bridge will be the most technologically advanced border crossing anywhere in North America. And so there are lots of areas that we're looking at. Windsor Works talks about the pivot into certain areas, life sciences being one, which is really important for us as well. You saw a great announcement in the paper today with a move by a European company into that space locally. And so it gives us lots of work to do to be able to pivot in the area that we're already expert in. But I take what you're saying, and we're taking lessons as well, Mark, on the tech side. I think of the Amazon HQ2 bid that we all got behind with the city of Detroit. And it was really an amazing document when you actually saw the value proposition of setting up, we called it one campus, two countries. And we showed how you could put a building on either side of the river, get the both best talent from the United States and Canada, and you could actually link the buildings with a ferry or a cable car. And so what the outcome of that, when you took the narratives from Windsor and Detroit and you married them together into one document, what a compelling case we had as a region. And Windsor Works, the first thing you'll see in Windsor Works is the need to cooperate more strongly with the city of Detroit and activities that are happening in Detroit, because we think there are some synergies there that we can build on. And I would use Edison Financial or the Rocket Innovation Center as the outcome of what happened with Amazon HQ2. When we were unsuccessful, Dan Gilbert called up and said, Drew, you know, I'm looking at our document and it's such a compelling case. And I asked myself, why am I not doing what we're professing that Amazon should do? Why don't I move some business to Windsor? So he has. And you've got 150 people who are working downtown now. They're looking for additional space, and they have amazing growth plans that are all in the tech space in downtown Windsor. And so we're helping facilitate them as well. But what we want to do is help opportunities, excuse me, opportunities grow in that space, because there is so much that we're missing that we have an opportunity to tap into. And because of our proximity to Detroit and to Michigan and some of the exciting things that are happening there, we want to make sure that we're not missing anything any longer. And so we're committed to this. But listen, if you have other questions, send me an email, call anytime, and happy to discuss what's in this document or any ideas that you might have. At the end of the day, this is a collective effort. We all have to be rowing in the same direction here if we hope to win. And there's nothing more that I want, and I'm sure everyone on the call wants, is for our community to win and our region to win.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our next question comes from Angelo. Says, thank you for the ward meeting this evening to give us an opportunity to raise our questions and concerns. Are there any plans to add trails to the South Cameron woodlot between Taunton and Northwood?
Thank you, Angelo, for that question. You know, the South Cameron woodlot has been a pet project of mine from day one, and the wetlands have been designated, so we have some protected areas in that area. We have the one trail, as you know, that goes up from Randolph, from Ojibwe, and connects up to the other side of Randolph going to Taunton. I would like to see some development in there, but it would be very minimal, because we need to preserve the wetlands, and in fact we can't develop in those wetlands, and also to keep preserve even the woodlot. But yes, that is on my radar, and I certainly will be speaking to Parks Development to see if we can get some sort of natural trails, maybe not the pavement trail that we have on Randolph, and that go through the woods. And I've walked through those woods many times, and it's something that everybody in Ward 10 should try to do, because it's a natural area right in the heart of our city. And so I've been working hard to make sure we preserve that. And I would like to see some better trails in there, because they get really mucky, as you probably know, Angelo. So if you go in the spring, you probably can't get through them till June, and by this time of year, it's starting to get rainy, and it gets. There are some unofficial trails, but I would like to see a little better drainage, or something that could be put down on the ground for it. So it will stay very natural. The city actually owns a big chunk in that area. So going north from Ojibwe, there's a really good area that we do have complete control over. So that would be an area where we could put possibly some walking trails in there. So as I say, that is a beautiful area for our ward and in the heart of our city. So I will certainly be working on that issue.
Thank you, Councillor. Our next question comes from the raised hand section. So we'll bring William in if we can to hear what question William has.
Do you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Jim, my question is more directed to more of the your committee position on the Development and Heritage Committee, with specific reference to the Sandwich South Master Servicing Plan and dealing with the Lausanne Parkway EA study plan. Even though it is complete, the specific question is related to the shift of the Lausanne Parkway to the west at the intersection of County Road 42. The shift was permitted because at that time, the corridor size was to be less than 150 meters or even less than 100 meters. But today we're looking at a corridor size going to 325 meters, and truly requires further discussion as to the parkway being shifted, since the shift was based on lands were going to be left dead. But now that the corridor size goes to 325 meters, there will be no dead lands. The corridor was shifted from its technically preferred location, resulting at this time that under the Sandwich South Master Servicing Plan, that there are not permitting any further discussions about this factor, because it actually ends up resulting in the landowner on the west side of Little River being required to carry 225 meters of the corridor, and the landowner on the east side of Little River only 100 meters. So it seems that there needs to be some type of direction given to the Sandwich South Master Servicing Plan to say that there needs to be some discussion here. So hopefully it would be beneficial to find out which way we can go here.
Thanks, William. And, you know, this isn't a ward-specific thing. I am on the planning. It has not been brought to planning. I'll certainly be looking at all the advice of all our planning and engineering people. This is a, you know, a long ongoing process. It will take some time. I know listening to your question and answers on Councillor McKenzie, who is in that ward on the other night, that you are in contact with senior management people on this. So I'm going to have to leave it at that. I'm certainly not an engineer, and I'll be waiting for further advice before I'm involved in any way on this. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor. Our next question comes from Reno. Can we improve the visibility of stop signs in our neighborhoods? Notice many times cars not stopping at the corner of Northwood and Academy. Many times people do not see the stop sign, especially when traveling westward during sunset. So asking about stop signs.
Thanks, Reno. And I know where you live, right by Northwood Elementary School. And we have, I don't know, two or three, I guess, four-way stops on Northwood. So at Academy, Everts, and Randolph. And, you know, I want to touch on four-way stops because when we have side streets with four-way stops and going on to collector lanes, so whether it's LaBelle, Northwood, or Taunton, we're having problems on all of them. And you know, the reason they go through those signs, and it's always going through on the collector, the main roads, it's causing problems. And this week I just responded to an accident on LaBelle at Academy at that four-way stop. These are mostly not warranted, and really I would certainly like to encourage you to maybe look at the possibility of actually taking to asking to withdraw the four-way stop, because people on the side streets that get there first always think that, or usually will think that they have the right of way, which they do, and so they venture out to go straight or turn. And too often people on the collector roads go sailing right through, and it's causing more trouble than they're worth, because people that don't have four-way stops keep thinking that'll solve problems, but it really doesn't. So I've looked at your four-way stop. I can ask someone in traffic. I know Ian Day is on here, so maybe you can comment. I've looked at yours. Yours is, you know, when I go through yours and then I go up to the Everts one, there's actually a tree in front of the Everts one. So the visibility is as good, I believe, as any of the other ones. And I'll ask Ian for any more response, but I don't believe we put bigger stops. They seem to be a standard size. So Ian, can you provide any kind of extra information regarding this?
Sure. As far as the size of the stop signs is, we're regulated by the Ontario Traffic Manual. The size of the sign is basically based on the speed on the roadway. The other thing, like one of your suggestions was chevrons on or around, or to try and increase the visibility of the stop sign. Again, we're regulated. The government doesn't really want to see, or we don't want to see something that will actually distract from the stop sign itself. What I can tell you is we do a yearly inspection to ensure that the reflectivity of the sign is there. At the same time, we check visibility and sight lines, but unfortunately we only get out there once a year. We rely on the public to come in with a 311 complaint or complaint to us. And if they are obscured or their visibility problems, usually between ourselves and our Parks and Forestry, we'll go out there and clean up the sight lines to it. But again, we need the input from the public on these because we only get out once a year.
Thank you, Ian.
You're welcome.
Very good. We will go back to the raised hand option now, and I see Nick's hand is up. So if we can bring Nick in, and go ahead. Nick, are you there?
Yep, sorry, I'm muted. Can you hear me now?
Yep, there you go.
Okay, sorry about that. Good evening. So Jim, questions for you and Drew, I guess. On September 16th, you guys came out to the end of South Pacific here, and the concern for both of those roads were brought up. What was done since then?
Sorry, Nick. Well, as I say, it's a work in progress. We haven't started the work across the road for the Southdale Park, so it has not gone across South Pacific. So that is something I believe that will be looked at as the connection is made. It's really hasn't started yet. So I'll be asking James Chaco later for an update on when that work will begin. But I will say that I will make sure that traffic is involved with as that construction is being completed, that we look at anything that we can do to ensure people can get across the road more safely. So it's something that's just hasn't moved, and so I'll leave it at that. Other than I do hear your point, and I've recorded it so that I will make sure that we look at anything that can be done regarding safety across that road. Obviously, there's the road across at Parent as well on going towards Remington Park. There are considerable signage at that one, but we'll be looking at other things. In fact, I'm also been working already on temporary traffic calming, and certainly that South Pacific is one I haven't heard an answer back from traffic yet. We're looking at what we can do for traffic calming on South Pacific to keep speeds lower. And the whole issue of speeds on residential streets is also being looked at and will be brought forward to us early next year as well. So it is something that is not forgotten. It's just not there yet. But I'll leave it at that for right now.
Thank you, Councillor. Our next question is from Subhash. What is the deadline for completing the improvements on Dominion Boulevard, specifically filling the ditches and declogging the traffic snarl, which makes it difficult for residents to get to the EC Row?
Thank you, Subhash, and good hearing from you again. We've talked many times about that project, but I am going to now turn it over to Chris, or Chris, one of your members of your team. Basically, we're looking at Mr. Subhash lives right at Ojibwe and Dominion, and we're looking at what the timeline is for the next phase, and maybe you can just give a quick, brief description of it. I know Subhash knows what we're doing, and the main objective here, for one of the main objectives, is to get rid of the ditches on Dominion. So can I just get an update if I can, please, Chris?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks for the question, Subhash and Councillor. In terms of Dominion, you're right. I mean, phase one, the stormwater studies in progress, right? And phase one from Northwood to Ojibwe is destined to be tendered next summer, and construction start late summer, early fall, and hopefully look to be wrapped up at the end of next year. From Ojibwe to Taunton is looking at construction for 2024.
Thank you, Chris. And I don't know if you can answer this, or maybe Ian Dave might be better to handle this. Can you tell us, Ian, at this point, how we will be handling the intersection at Ojibwe and Dominion? It's a problem area, and there's only one way into that subdivision, and behind it going to the west. So have we reached a decision on how we're going to handle that intersection?
I don't want you to quote me 100% on this, Councillor, but it is my understanding at the moment that will have will become a signalized intersection.
Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor, if I can, we've got Miss Isabel Tunks online, and she's the deputy city engineer, and might have some detail to add to this. I'm going to put her on the spot here in terms of the ultimate design. I know design is going parallel with the study, but I'm not sure, France, if you got any more detail to add that?
Not really. It's still very preliminary, but we should have some more details in the next few months.
Thank you, everyone. And just for the people on this call, just so you know what's happening on Dominion, the road going north from Northwood up to Taunton, although it'll go in 2 stages, is being widened. So there'll be a 3rd lane put in, which will be a turn lane all the way down that roadway, so that if anybody needs to turn left into a house or anything like that, it won't back up all traffic. So there'll be a 3rd lane put in all the way down, which will widen it and remove the ditches, which is being something that everybody in the city has talked about for 20 years. So the ditches will disappear as that work happens, and there will be bicycle lanes in there. And I'm really thrilled about trying to get kids safely to school and walking more than being driven, which is causing a lot of problems at our schools as well. So anyway, that work is the next big project really for Ward 10. So I'm really looking forward to seeing shovels in the ground next year.
Thank you, Councillor. Our next question will come from the raised hand section again. We've got Don there with the hand up. So Don, come on in and let us know your question. Go ahead, Don. Your mic is muted, Don. These are the joys of Zoom.
Yeah. Sorry
No
about
problem.
Anyway, I'm a local resident and I'm very happy with what's happening in the city of Windsor, all the work going on. My question is, on South Cameron between Taunton and Northwood, they do a terrific job with cutting the weeds and keeping things pretty clean there. But inevitably, there's always a mattress, a studio couch, something being dropped there. Every time I go down there, I see something garbage dumped. Couldn't they put a camera up there to pick up the plate numbers on these folks and let them pay a little bit of a fine for dumping there? Is that a problem?
Well, thank you, Don. I'll maybe get some, do we have anybody from Environmental Services? But I will say, that's certainly a favorite dumping ground on South Pacific. You'll see signs up there that talk about, you could have a $5,000 fine and you'll find a couch down below the sign. So it's really a frustrating area. I know exactly what you're talking about. And I'm actually going to give a big shout out here. I don't know if you've ever seen stuff put out onto the side of the roadway with lots of yellow bags. And we have a gentleman, his name is Dave Pegg, and he goes around that area and especially around Taunton and picks up litter every day. So I want to give a real shout out to him that he's helping us keep up the litter. But the big dumping that's happening there is an ongoing problem, and it's so disrespectful. I would love to catch somebody doing it, but is there anybody that is responsible for anything regarding that? I don't know if we have cameras. I've heard before that when we put a camera up, they just move on to a different spot. So it's a tough thing. Chris, can you comment, please?
Yeah, Councillor Morrison, thanks for the question. Don, you're absolutely right. I mean, dumping on people find places, right? They find the place they want to dump, regardless of cameras or not. And unfortunately, that's one of those areas. All I can say is, continue to call 311. We continue to get out there and react and be able to take care of that and get that out of there as soon as possible. It's hard to catch. It's hard to catch those people, even with cameras. Cameras in the middle of the night and getting license plates and identifying individuals. There's issues with that as well. So it's not necessarily the solution either. Hopefully some education maybe in the area. I don't know. Maybe we can. I'll go back with my team and brainstorm, and maybe there's a communication campaign. But again, typically the people that are doing it aren't the ones that are looking for that type of communication. So sorry, I don't have a really good answer for you, but a little more detail.
And thank you. And this is one of my things that really bug me when I see people dumping or just plain littering, and it really it really bothers me. So if you see somebody doing even small littering, I wouldn't mind people saying, it's that really isn't what you should be doing. It's something that we're trying to make our city more beautiful, and people just do that. And so anyway, it's a tough issue, and it's been an issue from day one for me. So I wish we had a perfect answer. Jason, I'm just going to make an announcement here for people. I want people that live basically behind Holy Names High School. So from Dominion to Northwood and back in there to Mark and all the way up to Manitoba. So basically everybody that goes into that subdivision off of Dominion into at Ojibwe, the power is going to be turned off by N1 this Saturday from 9 a.m. and it's going to last, unfortunately, for about 8 hours. They're doing replacing a number of poles and for the main feed into that subdivision. So it's going to be an inconvenience for a lot of people. So I'm just trying to give a heads up. I know you will get some kind of notification from N1, but I wanted to if anybody lives in that area on this call, to be aware of it and let your neighbors know, because that's a long outage that is going to cause some inconvenience for people. So the timing is basically set on a Saturday so that Holy Names is not affected. And between kind of spring and fall, we're trying to catch a period where there's not a lot of heating and cooling needed for electricity, but it obviously is a day-long outage. So I sympathize with those people, but I'm just trying to give a heads up. This is work that has to be done. Thank you, Jason.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor. The next question comes from Randall. The deciduous trees in South Windsor have aged considerably and have outgrown safe heights and reach given their natural lifespan. The city discontinued its tree service, leaving neighbors with great expense to trim overreaching branches of weight and size and threaten safety. Why was the service discontinued, and can it be reconsidered?
It has been reconsidered. Ray, are you the expert in this area? I don't see forestry on here, but you could give the details of our program. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Thank you for the question, Randall. And maybe I'll start and I'll have James Chaco jump in. But as the Councillor said, in the past few budgets, Council has actually invested a lot of money in tree trimming, and we've actually enhanced our service. So if you do have trees that are on city property that require trimming, please call us, call 311, log it, and we have someone that'll come out immediately and assess the tree. Obviously, if it's on personal property, it's the owner's responsibility to maintain it, but certainly the funding has been increased into the millions of dollars, where we are on a maintenance program that maintains trees on a regular basis. I think it's on a 7-year program, but I'll ask Mr. Chaco to give the finer details.
Thanks, Ray. And you're correct, Council in the last number of years, both through capital and operating budgets, have invested millions of dollars. This is now the first year of our annual 7-year tree maintenance program. So you'll see every city tree trimmed once every 7 years. We started this as our first year, but certainly we would request that any member of the public contact 311 if they have any issues with a city-owned tree. And certainly if there's any questions whether or not it's a city-owned tree or a private-owned tree, please contact 311. Our city forestry department is exceptionally well-trained. They're all certified arborists. They will come out and inspect the tree, and they will also inform the residents whether or not it's a city tree or a private property tree, and certainly give some direction of how to best go forward with trimming it. But certainly any city-owned tree, there's been a large investment, and the city certainly takes it very seriously from a risk standpoint, and to help preserve the urban tree canopy, which is extremely important to this city and any other city in terms of the importance. And there's been a great investment, and the city's forestry department is very knowledgeable and reacts very quickly through the 311 system. So certainly please always contact 311 for all those requests.
Thanks, gentlemen. And certainly I was very proud of the increase in the budget for forestry, and for years it kind of got behind, and that's why we're playing a little bit of catch up, and you might have a delay in some service. But as we get through this 7-year cycle, that will keep things under control. And one of the things we did is we made trees part of our assets of the city. So it's actually, we have an asset management plan, and trees are part of that. And one of the first things that was done was taking an inventory of all our trees. So I can actually see myself, and if you call 311, they can quickly tell you whether it's a city tree or not. So You can easily figure that out, and that's great. And the other thing is, besides the trimming part, the city is planting a lot of trees, aren't we, James and Ray? I know in Langlois Parquet that I've talked about, there's about 150 new trees along that trail. And I commented that in about 10 years, it's going to provide a beautiful canopy to walk through in that area. But I believe we've planted about 2,000 trees just this year. Is that correct? So if anybody would like to have a tree in their front yard, please call 311 as well, because you can be put on the list, and the city will provide new trees for you on your front yard. So I encourage you. We want more trees. So if you would like to have one, we will certainly work towards getting you one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And we are getting close to 7, so I'll ask that everybody keeps their answers concise, complete but concise if they can. This question comes from Sriram. Will there be any disruptions that will happen in relation to the ongoing pipe upgrades in the city? Will there be any on south of Tecumseh on Campbell, similar to the ones happening on the north side? Do we know anything about that?
I don't believe, maybe Chris can respond. The pipes, I believe, the water pipes that we're doing on Campbell, north of Tecumseh, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's part of the lead pipe removal program, if I'm correct. But I don't believe anything is coming south of Tecumseh. Is that correct, Chris?
You're absolutely correct, Councillor. Yeah, there's nothing in the 10-year plan on Campbell there.
Yeah,
in the approved one. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. This question comes from Pauline, who asks if speed is an issue, she says, on Dan Duran Ave north of Northwood, and wondering what can be done to take action on that, because it's a danger for kids walking and people entering and exiting driveways and such.
Hi, Pauline, and I'm very aware of the situation. I've talked to you and your husband, Frank. We are looking at some temporary traffic calming measures. And I know you're looking at a speed hump is what you might be looking for. And maybe I'll ask Ian Day to maybe comment. I'm not really sure whether, I think we're looking at studying whether we will do any speed humps, but we are looking at, I'm certainly doing some other projects as temporary measures. And one of the big things for people that are listening, that for residential streets, I'm a big proponent of lowering the speed limit to 40 kilometers an hour on residential streets. And we are waiting for the Vision Zero report, which is the basic premise of it is to have zero fatalities of pedestrians. And lowering the speed has been proven to reduce fatalities and save lives. So we need to slow down people as they go through. I'm not sure a speed hump works very well, but it's something that we're looking at several different possibilities along there. One of the things I want to comment on too, Pauline, if you don't mind, the issue with speeding isn't just speeding. The issue is safety. And so, when I look at streets that lead to schools and they have no sidewalks, that really bothers me. And, as I say, the issue is protecting those pedestrians that have to walk on the road, and they're not really in a safe position. And so certainly on your street, you have about 11 houses that don't have sidewalks. For some reason, it stops as it goes to the school. And so I'm certainly trying, if we, I would love to get a petition to try to get some sidewalks in that area. So maybe I'll leave it at that. But Ian, do you have any other thoughts for Pauline regarding traffic calming on a residential street? And just so you know, Ian, Mrs. Tordy lives on Danderand, just off Northwood. So just north of, going north off of Northwood, and it goes around, and it has an outlet at Ojibwe at Dominion.
Sure. Councillor, I'll pass this one off actually to Juan Paramo from Transportation Planning. He'll have a better answer and a more accurate answer than I will on this.
Councillor Morrison, So our traffic calming projects, we have a quite long list, and we will have to go through the different locations where traffic calmings are requested to find out whether this location is actually on our list. But if it is in our list, then a petition to review this location was already submitted to 311. We will be looking at volumes and speeds to find out whether this location will qualify for traffic calming.
Thank you, Juan. Maybe if you send me an email when you check that. I did hear possibly that there was a review of the traffic on this road before, but it was not during my time, so I'm not really clear on it. So we will get back to you, Pauline, regarding if there's anything that we can do. You have a beautiful area there, and it certainly, I don't know if it's becoming a bigger issue with cut-through traffic or not, but otherwise, I would never really go into your area without actually living in that nice area. So if you can leave that with us, we'll leave it at that. So thank you.
And Councillor, there was a slight follow-up question from Pauline regarding the corner of Dominion and Northwood being rebuilt, not addressing the bottleneck created at Northwood because there's no left turn signal for southbound on Dominion.
Thank you. That's my big introduction of Pauline for something I do want to announce. So basically, when we did the Dominion work, we put in, the big part of it was that new intersection at Northwood and Dominion. And of course, it's a big intersection, and it really services a lot of traffic. Dominion has become a main route to go from South Windsor to downtown, but it also services a ton of traffic that wants to go to to Holy Names High School, going one way, and on the other side, going on the east side, it's Northwood Elementary School. You got Maranatha, which is a private school. You got La Jeunesse, which is a high school. So there's a ton of things going on in this area, so the traffic is huge. So we've really improved the traffic flow on Dominion, so there is an advance left so that it'll clear out traffic going to Holy Names, especially in the morning, and it moves traffic along Dominion going northbound. But the big bottleneck that everybody asked for and is from Northwood Elementary going back to Dominion. So a lot of people drop off their kids, or you might live in that area like you do. They come back to the intersection. They want to make a left-hand turn on Dominion and go southbound, and often to the EC Road Expressway. So we heard this loud and clear from people. I've been listening to this issue for the last 2 years, and I've agreed with it for 2 years. So I want to say thank you also to the mayor. I've been talking to the mayor about this issue. We're finally getting it resolved, and we will put in a left-hand turn lane at that main intersection so people can turn left and turn southbound. So there will be an advance green. If you look closely right now, I didn't know if anybody would comment earlier because the light is actually already up, but the advanced green portion, which is the bottom signal portion, is covered over. So it's ready to go, but I've been informed that we're waiting for a part or something to make it operational. But again, Ian, do you have any, or Chris, update on when that will become operational?
Yeah, I think you're right, Councillor. And I just wanted to add, and it's more to it than just the light, right? The timing of lights in queue in a row are also fundamentally important on how one intersection works. So when people are exiting Northwood and going south on Dominion to the expressway, the light at that expressway also has to be tweaked. So it's a bit of an art form. It's really interesting, actually, at least to me anyways. It's really interesting in terms of how the timing and the art of making sure that the lanes are vacated work. Yeah, that part I'm told is supposed to be coming shortly. I don't want to give a date because I know that date becomes reality, but yeah, like you said, the light is up. When the part comes, it'll go in and we'll get it going.
Great. And I know we've had hundreds of people. I don't think I've had one subject on emails and phone calls about one particular location. I don't believe I've had more on any other subject than this one. So a lot of people will be very pleased about that. And, you know, it won't solve everything. I mean, I've gone to 4 different schools in the last 2 weeks, and every one of them have traffic problems. And certainly moving this traffic out as best we can will help. But again, there's just too many cars. And you know, we need to look for safer ways to get children to school by biking or walking. I mentioned Dominion will get a safer bikeway and sidewalks that can help get them there. But I certainly encourage people to use our buses where they're available, and you know, try to encourage walking. I will also say that I've been working with parking enforcement. We will be doing blitzes at these schools because people are not obeying the rules. And at the Northwood Elementary School, I am working on trying to get a crossing guard on Longfellow right at the school. So basically there's hundreds of kids that get guided through the Northwood Dominion intersection, walk on the sidewalk with crossing guards. There's 2 crossing guards, and guided to the school, and then all of a sudden have to navigate that small little side road where cars are turning into the school and everybody is going in all directions, and it can become quite unsafe. So that is a top priority for me as well right now.
Thank you, Councillor. A couple of questions left here. One from Dave says decorative lighting in Southwood Lakes costs taxpayers somewhere between $500 and $750 million more than standard lights. Why did this go through when other locations in our ward could have used this to kind of add lighting in low lit areas?
Well, I guess I'm probably allowed to say not much more than I voted against them getting the decorative lights. I thought that it would be possible to replace the lights with standard lights, and if the people in that area wanted to pay for decorative, that they would pay more. But that did not pass. And the thinking was, and I don't know if the mayor wants to speak more, but the thinking was here that we'll replace like for like. So when we replace a light, we replace it with what was there. If we replace a sidewalk, we'll replace it the way it was as well. So it is a controversial decision, and as I say, I've noted how I voted on that issue.
Very good, thank you. And I have to correct myself. It was 750,000. Dave actually wrote back in saying not 750 million. That would have been an expensive light. So thank you, Dave, for correcting that. One more question here for traffic enforcement of some sort. The speed on Dominion and Campbell Road intersection. Have come close to hitting someone on more than one occasion in that area. Is there anything that can be done? That is Dominion Campbell Road intersection.
I assume you're talking, it's where you're going north on Dominion. It sort of takes a little bit of a bend, but it continues on as Campbell, and you're right at Totten. So that's the intersection. It's not a square intersection, and maybe it's good that it's being raised right now, because the second phase of work on Dominion will take it right up to that Totten intersection. And maybe if Mr. Nepsey is taking note of that, we can look at that intersection, because it's not a square intersection. So it may have some safety issues involved with it. And regarding speeding, obviously, that's an issue that we've talked about, and it's a concern. And if traffic would like to even comment whether we've looked at that area before, or whether we can do some get some data on that intersection.
All right, we will move along here then. With this question comes from Mark. It's a nice short one. When will the red light camera be activated on Howard Avenue at EC Row? Anyone know that one?
I think Ian's got his hand up, Councillor. If you don't mind, Ian can answer that. And then I want to kind of go back to that last question you had. Sorry, on on Dominion and Taunton and Campbell there, the intersection. We're going to be, like Francis noted, we're in the preliminary stages of design. So that's definitely something that I've taken note of. If you see me looking away, it's not because I'm not listening, it's because I'm looking at the map on my other monitor to make sure that I've got lined up where it is. So, but yeah, that's something that we'll review design. So if you're okay, I can hand it over to Ian to talk about red light cameras.
Sure. We're in the final phases right now of hooking up the power to the red light cameras with the ministry's contractor. And the schedule is looking at 3 weeks to activate those lights or the red light cameras.
And just to comment, they are looking at, I believe, 10 locations to start with in the city. And it's based on data where we've had severe accidents, and going through a red light is a very dangerous thing, and especially if they're speeding, and T-bone accidents are very, very dangerous and often lead to fatalities. So the reason the council is authorized red light cameras is to improve safety for people, so that it deters them from going through red lights. But again, all of these measures, whether it's traffic calming or red light cameras or photo radar for that matter, are all through the lens of improving safety.
Very good. Our next question comes from Monica, and it's about with regards to the recent rankings of the Ontario Municipal Democracy Index. Windsor's near the bottom. What does council plan to do to create gender balance on council, as well as racial diversity, inclusivity, and municipal democracy? Kind of a tough question for this forum.
I don't think I can answer that, but I'm aware of the study. I have not read the study, so I know there may be other people. Maybe our CAO can comment on that if you're up to speed on that one, Jason.
Yeah, certainly, Councillor Morrison. We were disappointed to see those results, but also not surprised. And I think for some time, council has made efforts, as well as the community, to try to move significantly in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Some of the points system in that study are for example, gender diversity on council. And I think everyone knows we ultimately would like to see in the upcoming election better gender diversity. But the tricky part, not to get into all the details, but just to give you one example, apparently in the last election, I wasn't here, there were a number of female candidates, but they didn't ultimately get elected. So, while we would think that the first issue is trying to get female candidates to run, the second, perhaps more difficult issue is how do you get them elected, right? And that's not really administration's role, but I think that's gives you an example of how challenging some of these issues are. Council has put their money where their mouth is on this in a number of different ways, and trying to move this forward. Ultimately, bottom line, the organization itself, the governance of council, everyone wants it to reflect appropriately the community that it serves, and that's what we're going to be working really hard on. And I would just put the call out there that if you have ideas, if you have suggestions, if you're aware of different tools and success stories in other municipalities, we'd love to hear from you. 311 can connect you. That's the easiest, but also, of course, email my office or the mayor's office. We know we have a lot of work to do in this area, and we're interested in how people think we can make significant strides. It's an area of significant concern to us. Thank you, Councillor.
Very good. And we have one more question left, and it's a nice one to end on as well, I think, as we have run a little long. I apologize for that. But it says, and it's mainly aimed at Ray Mansour, but I know the councillor may want to speak as well. We have Chris, will we have the lighting displays again at Jackson Park for this holiday season?
Go ahead, Mr. Mansour.
Yeah, it's always nice to end on a positive note. Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, we actually began work in setting up bright lights this week. You might have seen the fencing go up around Jackson Park. It usually takes us about 6 weeks to set up. So we're aiming to have opening night on the first weekend of December if everything goes according to plan. But yeah, we definitely plan on operating and hosting this year's version of Bright Light. So we're looking forward to it. Pending no further restrictions due to the pandemic, everything should begin in early December. Thank you for the question.
And thanks, Ray. And I know Mr. Mansour is busy working on getting people back into all our facilities. And so it's a big challenge as things change it almost day to day with the COVID restrictions. But we are starting to loosen up, and let's hope that things don't deteriorate and we can continue to expand the services that we offer to the community. So thank you.
That wraps up the questions, Councillor. So if you'd like to make a closing comment or not, then I can just wrap it up.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate everybody that's on the screen for your personal time. And we've got a lot of good people working in administration, and I really appreciate all the help you give me all the time. So we covered off quite a bit of territory. There are a lot of other things too. So, but we won't have time to cover them off. But watch for me sending out information on various social media sites, because I usually try to disseminate new information through those sites. And I have a Jim Morrison Ward 10 site that really is really my main site to provide information. I will be posting probably a summary of this meeting on there, and I will be including a survey so that I hear more from people about what is important to them on various issues. So I look forward to anybody reaching out to me for any subject that wasn't covered tonight, and you know, I'll continue to work on those issues through administration. So thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight, and I appreciate it. And let's make Ward 10 the best ward in the city. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. That does conclude the fourth of our 10 ward meetings in 2021. I'd like to thank our Ward 10 residents for being here this evening, along with Councillor Morrison, Mayor Dilkins, and our administrative team. The plan is to post this meeting to our YouTube channel tomorrow. As well, any questions that may come to mind later, as always, can be emailed to the ward councillor, in this case, jmorrison@citywindsor.ca. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.